He promised to marry her as a joke. Now the alien girl is grown and back for him. Danny Carter never thought a childhood promise would come back to haunt him. But here he was staring at the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, standing in his doorway claiming to be his future wife. It all started 15 years ago when Danny was just 10 years old, and his father worked as a diplomat on the newly established human colony of New Haven. Back then the galaxy was still getting used to the idea of humans mingling with dozens of alien species, and Danny's father was one of the pioneers helping to build bridges between Earth and the stars. One day a group of alien dignitaries visited their home. Among them was Ambassador Kelrin from the planet Jayara and his young daughter Lyra. She was small for her age, with shimmering silver skin that sparkled like starlight, and large violet eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them, while the adults talked about treaties and trade agreements. Danny was stuck. Entertaining the ambassadors, daughter Lyra was curious about everything. She touched his video games with wonder, asked a million questions about Earth, and followed him around like a shadow. Danny found her annoying at first, but there was something endearing about her excitement over the simplest things like ice cream and cartoons. On the last day of their visit, Lyra had grabbed his hand with her three-fingered grip and looked up at him with those enormous eyes. "When I grow up, I will marry you," she declared with the seriousness only a child could muster. Danny had laughed, finding the whole thing hilarious. Sure, when you grow up. "I'll marry you," he promised. Without thinking twice, it was just kid stuff, right? Something to make her smile before she left. The adults had found it adorable. His father chuckled, and Ambassador Kelrin smiled warmly, explaining that on Jayara childhood promises held great weight, but Danny barely paid attention. He was 10 and already thinking about the new game he wanted to play. Now 15 years later, Danny was 25, working as an engineer in Seattle, living a normal human life. He had dated a few girls, nothing serious, and barely remembered that day on New Haven, until the moment Lyra appeared at his door. She was no longer the small child he remembered. Lyra had grown into a stunning woman, standing nearly 6 feet tall. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the afternoon light, and her violet eyes were deeper, more knowing. Her hair was long and white, flowing like liquid silk down her back. She wore clothing that was clearly alien, yet somehow elegant. A flowing suit that shifted colors with her movements. "Danny Carter," she said his name like a sacred word. "I have returned to honor our promise." His brain short-circuited what promise he managed to stammer. "Our marriage vow." She stepped inside his apartment without invitation, looking around with the same curiosity she had as a child. "You promised to marry me when I grew up. I am grown now." Danny felt the world tilt. This had to be a joke, right? People didn't actually hold children to random promises made decades ago. But the serious expression on Lyra's face told him she was completely sincere. "Look, Lyra, that was just kid stuff. I was 10. I didn't actually mean it." Her expression faltered, confusion crossing her features. On Jayara, a promise is binding, especially one made between two people in front of witnesses. Your father was there. My father was. There the bond was formed. "Bond," Danny repeated weakly. She moved closer, and he caught a scent like ozone and flowers. "I have waited 15 of your years, Danny. I studied your culture, learned your language, turned down other suitors because I was promised. To you in my heart, I have been yours since that day." Danny ran his hand through his hair, feeling panic rise. This was insane. He couldn't just marry someone because of something he said as a stupid kid. But looking at Lyra, seeing the hope and determination in her eyes, he realized this was very real to her. The next few days were chaos. Lyra refused to leave. She had rented an apartment in his building and seemed determined to prove she would make an excellent wife. She cooked for him strange alien dishes that somehow tasted amazing. She fixed things in his apartment that had been broken for months. She even hacked his computer to organize his files better. Danny tried everything to convince her it was a misunderstanding, but Lyra was stubborn. She followed him to work where his colleagues gawked at the gorgeous alien woman who called herself his fiancée. She accompanied him to the grocery store, to the gym, even to his weekly poker night with his friends. His best friend Kyle pulled him aside. "One evening, dude, I don't know what your problem is, but if you don't want her, I'll take her." "That's not the point," Danny hissed. "I can't marry someone I barely know just because I made a stupid promise as a kid." But as days turned into weeks, something shifted. Danny found himself actually enjoying Lyra's company. She was brilliant, funny, and had a way of seeing the world that fascinated him. She told him stories about Jayara, about crystal cities and twin moons, about her childhood and her dreams. She listened. When he talked, really listened in a way no one else ever had. One night they sat on his balcony looking at the stars. She pointed out her home world, a distant point of light in the constellation he had never noticed before. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "Every day," she admitted, "but I miss the idea of you more. For 15 years you have been my dream. Danny Carter, the human boy who promised me forever." He felt something crack in his chest. "I didn't understand what I was promising." "I know," she said softly. "But does that make the promise less real? I am here. I am real. And I choose you even knowing you did not mean it. Do you not see how rare that is to choose someone completely?" Danny looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just an alien woman, but someone who had crossed the galaxy for him. Someone who believed in a silly childhood promise so deeply she had shaped her entire life around it. "What if I can't love you?" he whispered. "Then I will love you enough for both of us, until you can." She smiled, and it was like stars breaking through clouds. 3 months later, Danny stood in a garden on Earth wearing a suit that Lyra's people had sent. It shimmered like his bride's skin. Beside him, Lyra wore white and silver, her hand in his 3 fingers wrapped around 5. The officiant asked if he took this woman to be his wife, and Danny looked into those violet eyes that had haunted him since childhood. "I do," he said, and this time he meant it completely. Lyra squeezed his hand. "I told you I would wait for you. You never gave up on me," Danny whispered, amazed. "Never," she replied, "because you promised, and on my world a promise is forever." As they kissed, Danny realized that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, even from a joke made by a 10-year-old boy to an alien girl who took his words and turned them into destiny.